Hey there guys, welcome back to another sexy review. I'm going to introduce you to my boss now. Quick, James, say something witty.
Don't drink and drive. Just spill it.
My boss. Welcome back guys to another sexy review. My name's Simon, here is the Xperia Z1. You may have seen a previous review regarding the Xperia Z and how excited I got when I was able to use a legitimate waterproof phone. Unfortunately, I didn't have any footage to show you, and I would have more footage to show you on the Z1 of it being waterproof, but unfortunately gravity and concrete decided to work against me and destroy my Z1 before I was able to properly demonstrate. Enough of my moping. This phone is a serious piece of kit, albeit a tad large for most people. It's roughly 144mm in length by 74mm in width, but remaining at a slim 8.5mm in depth. So for people with larger hands, this phone will be just about the right size. I personally found it quite a bit clunky in trying to handle it. They've tried to round off the edges, but it doesn't seem to really give off that smooth feel unless you're rubbing the front of the back panel. On top of that, it is a weighty 170 grams. Giving its size, it's understandable, but first impressions of this phone makes you think you're carrying a bit of a slab. The screen is a crisp 1080p 5-inch display with 441 ppi. This is great, it's vibrant, it's colourful, but people did like to mention to me that the blacks were a little light, and rather gave off a misty black rather than a deep black. Disappointingly, the viewing angles on the phone seem to be a bit outdated. Unless you're looking dead on the screen, there will be a loss of vision. A shame if you're trying to show a few people a YouTube video without having to pass it on one at a time. On top of that, as you look at the dimensions of the screen, it is 5 inches, which is nice and sizable, but it loses so much on the top and the bottom. It just feels like wasted space. It has an expandable memory slot for an SD card of up to 64GB, with it already coming with a base of 16GB as per usual with most phones these days. Whilst this phone only has one speaker for media playback, I found it to be more than efficient in producing a decent sound quality. It's not quite stereo, but it's decent until you start trying to play some sort of guttural dubstep. It has a speedy 2GB of RAM and a quad-core CPU running at 2.2GHz, and a GPU Adreno 330. Playing games on this phone is great, especially paired up with a 1080p display. You've got a portable gaming system right here if you want it to be. As well as being able to pair this phone with a PS3 controller, it makes this phone almost ideal for gaming. My only complaint is that over a period of time it does seem to get a bit warm, which resulted in ghost touches. But after letting it go through its problems, it seems to sort itself out again. Baseline, it comes with Jelly Bean, but should be upgradable to KitKat version of Android by now. Now, on to the big things with this phone, the camera being one of them. As you're probably aware of, no doubt heard, this phone comes with a 20 megapixel camera, and it is incredible. The pictures are crisp and are impressive in low light conditions. It gives off colors well and records at 1080p at 30 frames per second. There are a few snags though. For some reason, Sony decided to give this amazing camera the tiniest flash LED imaginable. Whilst it is good in low light conditions, it would be better with a flash. However, the flash could barely lights up anything around it unless you're within close proximity, which is pretty blinding. Secondly, the 20 megapixel camera comes at a price of resolution. Now that may sound daft when you look at numbers like this, but the actual size of the image seems to be squashed down at the edges. It feels like you're missing out on what could be in the picture. However, I guess that comes down to the user's discretion. Quality over quantity. And as I'm sure you've no doubt seen advertised on all Sony flagships now, this is IP58 or IP58 certified, which means it is waterproof and dust resistant. This is the coolest feature of the phone. I did manage to get some footage of me putting my phone into a bowl of water. Not exactly the most amazing test in the world, but it demonstrates how awesome this feature is. I cannot stress enough though that you make sure all of your flaps are closed on the phone. It's waterproof only if it is sealed. If you don't seal it, it's your own dumb fault that the phone is now leaking. It is terrifying though. At first, throwing in £400 worth of phone into the water, and you've convinced yourself that you've actually broken it because the speakers now sound muffled. However, give it 30 minutes to dry and it will be fully recovered. Just don't take it further than a meter of water in depth or for longer than 30 minutes because it can only handle so much. Well, that's all on the Xperia 1, guys. Check the website for prices at webuy.com, or pop a visit into your local store to see if you can get your hands on one of these. Bring down phones, DVDs, or games to trade them in against it, especially if you're not using any of this old stuff anymore. Something for nothing, right? Au revoir. Come back in, well, I don't know, soon for another review. Cheers, thanks very much.